Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron.
And I'm Brett.
And you're listening to The Last Alliance, a Rings of Power podcast.
We know it's a dangerous business going out your door, or when choosing a podcast, but we're glad you've joined our adventure as we discuss The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
And so it begins. All right, everybody. Welcome to this week's second breakfast for episode 7, Doomed to Die. I don't know about you, Brett, but my initial thoughts for the second breakfast, I felt like we kind of talked a lot about... I feel like we got most things mentioned in the instant reaction. It was harder than usual to pull apart and get more out of the episode and not be redundant from the instant reaction. What do you think?
I agree, and I think, at least for me, part of it was I'm just so excited for the finale, and it's hard to focus on just the single episode in a vacuum without considering what does this mean for how the series is going to end. It seems like we've got a lot of loose ends to tie up. So much different from season 1, right? Where we didn't really know the story. We didn't know the destiny of a lot of these characters. We didn't know, if anyone was actually going to die or who was who and whether that was going to be a big reveal. But we've got so many things to get to, it seems like, in one more episode that I'm ready to get there.
Yeah, and I think a big reason for that in season 1 was season 1 is kind of, setting the pace, right? I think we know where, about where they began, and we know where it's going to end, and we know there's 5 seasons, but I think season 1 was kind of us getting used to or calibrating ourselves to the pacing of this series. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to the finale. I have zero confidence that they are going to tie up any loose ends because
ouch.
It's just not their way. First of all, case in point being The Stranger. We've been going at it for 2 seasons now, and I still don't know if we're gonna get his identity next episode. I've been thinking the finale better be like a 2-hour ordeal to get everything we want out of it. It won't be.
That's what I'm hoping for. I hope we see some sort of announcement here in the next couple days that says we've got 2 hours. Plus.
Yeah, because if I remember from season 1, I heard or researched a little bit that something in their agreement limits them to 8 episodes per season. But I don't think they're limited in how long those episodes can go. So if they could extend it to 2 hours this week, that'd be great. There was a lot of, like I said, things that we already mentioned and that we won't go over again here in Second Breakfast, but there were a few things that I wanted to look at to, parse out a little bit more thoroughly, and there was also some questions that I had come to my mind.
And I had some mistakes, some misspeaks, especially regarding the kiss. So some things to clean up and own some mistakes.
That just threw you for a loop, watching. Though. We can tell.
Man, that really. I don't know if I got too excited about that or what, but yeah, that was wild. I was telling Matt, I want to be there when my dad watches that episode because windows will break, words will be said, and the TV will be shut off.
Perfect. I kind of just broke it up into like where different places. So let's just start out with the battle at Eregion, the siege, right? So I was watching a little bit of the little like post credits little episode they have where it gives a little preview of the next episode and some interviews with some of the characters, and something that they asked the showrunners, or the showrunners mentioned, was that this episode spans about a couple of weeks or a few weeks, I think is what he said. And so I was thinking, like, okay, well, that clears up the river drying up potentially a little bit. But also, what it doesn't clear up is what you thought was going to happen with the ring, right? Where they could have used any of the three rings or all of the three rings to bust up that river, especially once the orcs had established their siege machines in it and had most of their army in it. That would have been a great, hey, let's restore the principal defense of this city with these three brand new shiny rings of power that we got.
Let's be honest, Gil-galad wasn't going anywhere near the front of the lines until the very last, most desperate moment. But I do think it speaks to the fact that they are still learning what these rings are capable of.
Okay.
Our perspective is, they use them for anything. They're still relatively new to Elrond and Galadriel, and even Gil-galad. They're still not sure the foresight abilities that it's given them. So I'm fine with that. It dropped me in the bold predictions
True.
scoreboard, but I'm okay with it. What I'm still a little bugged about, and I think you are as well, is Eregion has got to be the most poorly equipped defensive city in all of Middle-earth.
100%. And yes, that was one of the other things that rewatching this, I was like, I was thinking back to when Minas Tirith was under siege and the steward was still in command for that brief moment. And I was like, even in that moment of just complete dereliction of duty, there was still some trebuchets firing off, and people were reinforcing the gate. And it's like, I didn't see one trebuchet. I didn't see one sort of like anti-siege weapon coming out of Eregion, the capital of the smiths of the elves, by the way. So you'd think that they could engineer some cool stuff. And it's like, yeah, no tar, no fire, no nothing. And I'm like, Minas Tirith was better defended under Denethor than this place is under who knows who. And I'm like, okay, so are they trying to show us that that's the extent of Sauron's mind games? Or is that an actual error by the showrunners? Is it to show us like the pride of the elves? Like what do you think?
I think it's the fault of the showrunners, because a lot
Yeah.
of those same things you can point straight back to the orcs as well. Like,
Yeah.
they had this elaborate plan to dam the river, but then they're using some trees that they just barely chopped down as ladders, and they only have like 3 of them.
Yeah.
So this
And
elaborate plan with no real execution after it.
And that goes to my point that I've said the last couple times, is it just seems like the scale of the number of people involved, at least on the good guys side, the elf side, it's the same 10 elven smiths who also are the archers and are also the people who are running and screaming through the town.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see a little bit more budget in that regard. I will say I got a good chuckle watching it again when Sauron sees what's happening, sees why they're turning the trebuchets, they're going to dam the river, and he says, "Prepare for ground assault." And the one elven captain's like, "Ground assault? What the heck is a ground assault?" He just had no idea. And I even saw like a look from Sauron where he's like, "Wow, you are pathetic." Like,
Yeah. Speaking of the siege machines on the orc side, though, I also had an issue. At first, I thought that crossbow thing was genius, but then when I watched it again, I was like, all they're doing is pounding some stakes into the stones and then ripping them out. Wouldn't they just come right back out of the hole that they just made? There was nothing that I could tell that was like grabbing the stone once the stake was in order to pull all the stones out once the little crossbow snapped, right? So I was like, that was a good idea, but actually really dumb.
And the elf lady who dies like Boromir, but except we didn't really care. She shoots kind of this barrel of something that makes it blow up. Not really sure
Yeah,
what. A
foil
little
or
random.
something.
Yeah.
So, well, but then it was like, yeah, it blew up, but then Elrond still had to go and try and chop the drawstring on it. So it was
Right.
like, well, good thing you took about 42 arrows there. One good thing that I thought was I noticed that, so we've noticed Arondir's kind of breastplate for the past season, 2 seasons, right? Um, and I noticed in this episode the forces from Linden are all wearing what looks like just gold and silver plating, right? But when I looked a little closer, it looked like it was kind of a tree. And then it dawned on me, I think that is kind of a symbol of the two trees, right? In Valinor at the beginning, because one was of golden light and one was of silver light. So that was kind of cool to notice. Good touch.
Can I hop on with Gil-galad? And
Yes.
you mention him a little later on here, it looks like, but maybe we just talk about it. He sees Elrond sitting in the mud, just absolutely devastated that Durin didn't come. Well, and he's still saying, Durin will come. Durin will come. He's absolutely broken. Gil-galad kind of gives him a look, which first time I watched looked very similar to the look he gave Galadriel in episode 1 when he found out that she's been dealing with Sauron. But then when I watched it again, I thought I saw maybe, I think he understands how broken Elrond feels. And it felt more like I got this, Elrond.
Yes, and that's where I thought that was Gil-galad's best moment of the episode. I don't fault Gil-galad the character for the things that we've already talked about, where he's not leading the charge, where he's, randomly showing up and then giving these corny lines about why he's now showing up. I think that's the showrunners. I think that Gil-galad's best moment was when he saw Elrond, and that was when the High King stepped in. The High King about him stepped in and was like, "Form ranks. We're going in to die,
How hard?
probably."
How hard is it to form ranks when you've got about 22 elves? How many ranks are there to form?
There's none, and I think they all knew that, but it was the attitude of, we're soldiers, look like it. We're gonna die, and it's what we do.
Which is interesting. I mean, they left us in that episode and we don't know what's happened. Like, presumably, we've got to pick right back up right on that field, right? I don't know
Right.
how else you
Because,
start episode 8.
Elrond is still kneeling there, right? Talking about Durin and why he's not there.
Well,
And we need to figure out what Adar is going to do with that ring.
Yes, and well, should we talk about it? And I think it's been talked a lot about on the internet. Something was up with his face at the end.
And we mentioned the CGI was kind of random, right? We didn't know why all of a sudden that needed to be CGI'd.
Yes, but was it intentional? And I think the theory we've landed on is Adar, the oldest of the orcs, the father of the orcs, who's actually an old elf, is he being restored by the power of Nenya to his uncorrupted elven form?
That would be, we talked about that a little bit, and that would be a mind-blowing turn of events. I say bring it on. I'm all about diving into that tangent. What do you think?
I'm sitting here thinking, what does that do to observing orcs around him? Do they see that as like are they aware that they come from elves? Or do they see elves as the
They,
great enemy? Do they would that
well,
cause them some angst if they saw their father in a
well,
more
both. And I think that there's plenty of cases of that in history, right? Where two groups come from the same previous lineage or ancestry, but are the biggest enemies of each other. So I do think that they know that because they call him their father, at least, right?
yeah.
And but yeah, it could open up a good argument of how Sauron could step in and say, Adar has been misleading you for this long. He was always in it for himself. He's not even one of you anymore. Follow me and I'll take you to the promised land.
We know that Adar's biggest motivation is to kill Sauron. And I believe him when he kind of told Galadriel his plan was to use the combined powers of Morgoth's crown and one of these elven
Yes.
rings of power. He now has both. Is he going to get the chance to use them on Sauron? And how will because we know that eventually, and it looks like the climax of the season is going to be this duel between Sauron and Galadriel with the crown of Morgoth at the center. So
Right.
at some point he gets unarmed.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see how Galadriel and Sauron even meet up, right? Because she's supposed to be fleeing. He's still in Eregion. The scene where we see them meet up, he has now donned some armor, which he was not
Yes.
wearing in Eregion. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. And he's got to deal, like, while she's running, allegedly, he's dealing with Celebrimbor, right? So that's going to take at least a little bit of time. My hunch is that Galadriel, in her infinite wisdom, is probably going to think that only she can save the day and has to come back and try to do something to save someone or to kill Sauron.
I think we'll come back and talk about maybe what that looks like. You'd mentioned his outfit change, and I had a neighbor point out to me it's interesting that his three main costumes that he's worn this series have progressed in terms of color and in terms of like durability armor. He starts off with his he starts off as his Halbrand character, but once he changes into Anatar, he's got the flowing bathrobe sauna
Right.
sheet. Then we see him change into this kind of green, more regal palace guard, tight-fitting robe that we saw in the last episode. And then, yeah, like you said,
Was
he's
it
now
green? I thought it was black.
There was green on it, I thought.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Yeah, I
pretty
thought it was
sure.
black with a gold stripe, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm colorblind.
It's really dark. I had to change the brightness on my TV a couple episodes ago to like super bright, and it made a huge difference.
Okay.
So it's green and gold, and now this black chest armor piece he's wearing. Not sure specifically what that's supposed to symbolize. Maybe it's just that he's really coming into his character as the Dark Lord. But interesting little tidbit, I thought.
Yeah. One last thing from the battle portion is we kind of talked about last week. The whole Damrod thing was way too hyped up, right? Watching it again, even more disgusted at how he died. Just a few things, right? Arondir jumps on him, and it's like he got tackled. And I'm like, that's not happening. This is
I was waiting for him to jump on his face at least, but he doesn't even jump on his face because he's already fallen down.
Yeah. Arondir jumps on him and he just falls over backwards like he just got tackled by somebody. And you think back to the scene where they're in Moria, right? And Legolas does the same thing. That troll is not even affected by Legolas jumping on him. And this guy, Damrod, is way bigger. So I'm like, that was unrealistic. Didn't even show the death blow. I don't know the purpose for that. Did we reach a gory maximum when he bit off the head of the orc and spit it out? Or, I don't know why we could not see that. And then we talked about the angle of the spear last time, right? It was just so off.
Did he serve any purpose? Like, he didn't kill anyone important. I guess the one thing he did do was show that he's this death machine that Adar's willing to use, and forget if he kills some of my own children, we're sending him in. I guess that's the only purpose he served. But I think he could have still achieved that with just the natural progression of the battle anyways, without hyping up this guy who we were so excited about, and he got 4 minutes.
Yeah. And another thing that I noticed is while he's laying on his back, picking out arrow from his hand like it's a toothpick, Elrond is like feet away from him fighting another orc. And I'm like, all right, if the troll has the time to be picking out arrows from his teeth, well, with his teeth from his hand, he can definitely smash Elrond with the other hand. So I was like, yet again. One thing, though, with Gil-galad, the last thing that I kind of thought from the battle is we mentioned his spear. I took a close-up look of it this time around. It looks really good. Like, maybe one of the best weapons that they have fashioned in this series. I liked how it kind of had like a feathery end almost, like a quill kind of. For reference, the name of the spear is, and I'll probably say it wrong, but Aglos, and it means snow point or icicle. There's not a whole lot written about it that I could tell, just that it was feared greatly by the enemy. Yeah, looking at the close-up of that spear, I thought it was well made, well done.
Yeah, my thought is, can we start mass producing this thing? Could we hand a couple others of these out?
Yeah.
One more thing in the battle. Arondir's stabbed. He's wounded on the field. I think it's safe to say he is not dead and he's not dying. At least that's my prediction. I don't think he's dying next episode.
Yeah, usually they come back and show a dead or dying corpse, right? For main characters that die like that. But that stab at the end seemed like it went like right through his lung into the heart.
So someone with a ring of power who may or may not be 10 feet away, Gil-galad, needs to swoop in and heal that guy.
Oh, Gil-galad's already gone.
He's gone? Where's Gil-galad?
He ran off. No, I don't know, I'm just...
The greatest need is somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay.
Gotcha. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a scary looking wound, but I think Arondir's coming back.
Yeah, that's kind of... And I kind of hope he is, because I want Adar to have a good, respectable storyline. Like, he's a likable character. They're just kind of screwing him over on his own storyline so far. I want them to give him a good one to make him matter a little bit before they kill him.
Yeah. Speaking of Arondir, I mentioned last time that I really enjoyed Galadriel's interaction with him and convinced him, like, don't give in to the hate just yet. Your true fight with Adar is yet to come. Yeah, it turns out you're going to get stabbed to the lung. But Katie pointed out, she's like, he just snipered 3 orcs unseen and undetected. What in the world is stopping him from just scooting back 50 yards and taking out Adar and then just scurrying off? Like, why not just kill the guy?
Even if he was prepared to die anyway, right? So even if he dies, like, get in a position good enough that there's no way you're not going to succeed,
Yeah, so I guess I'm questioning the purpose of. I still enjoyed the interaction. It showed us a bit of Galadriel's character, but now I'm also like, was that really necessary?
Right. And maybe Galadriel just needed him to help her get back into the city. Who knows?
She did say if you take him out now, you'll surely die, which I don't know if I buy that anymore, but
Yeah. All right, you want to move on to the orc camp?
let's
We'll
do
get
it.
to your favorite part.
Yeah, the kiss. So something that I noticed watching it again, you see Elrond take the brooch off his cape thing.
Yeah.
His robe. You see that clearly, and he's holding it in his hand at his side. And I noticed Gluk look down. Presumably,
I think he noticed.
I think he did too, and he saw it. And then right after that, he looks back up at Adar and says, "Yeah, he's unarmed."
Right.
Is that Gluk's first betrayal of Adar right there?
At least the first one we've seen. I think so. Because I think that it was pretty clear that he saw what he did and then like audibly said he's good to go.
Yeah. Which brings me to my admission of fault. I was convinced that Elrond had somehow snuck the key into his mouth and passed it through the mouth to Galadriel.
Yeah,
which I think would have been better.
When you said that, I was like, that would have been one kiss. My goodness.
Well, that's the look I thought she was giving him. Like, what in the world is in my mouth right now? No, he held it, and you can see it, right? Go back and watch it again. You get a half-second clip. You can see their hands coming away from each other, and there was clearly the handoff there.
Well, that was my thing, is and you were probably too consumed with the fact that they were kissing, which I was too, but the handoff was just so obvious. I was like, anyone not in rapture at this kiss is going to see, he totally just gave her something. Maybe we should check it out.
Well, I'll tell you what was happening. I was, the meme of Kermit the Frog just pounding away at the keyboard type. That's exactly what I was doing. Like, no, what in the world is going on? This is a stupid show. Blah, blah. That's what I was doing that made me miss it. So
I'm not throwing this out as a bold prediction, but I am.
Come on, do it. Call it a bold prediction.
No.
You're winning. You have nothing to lose.
I can't because I don't want it to happen. That's the main reason. The second time watching that through, I think that they are trying to make a real romance out of this. I really do. And whether it works out or not, I think that an attempt is being made. Maybe they're just throwing little tasters out right now to see how the audience reacts to it. And depending on that reaction, they'll push forward or abandon. But that seemed pretty real. You look back at her face as she's kissing him and him touching her. Either they are the best salesman in all of Middle Earth, or there's some realness to it.
Ugh. I can't do it. So you mentioned earlier kind of the promo material at the end of the episode. If you haven't seen it, at the end of each episode is kind of interviews with cast members. And Robert Aramayo, the actor who plays Elrond, talked about the kiss heard around the world, right?
Yes.
And he says that it's not romantic, but it is a gesture of love, that these two characters do love each other.
Oh,
but it was not
that
romantic.
Part. I'll have to go back and watch that because I watched it, but I missed that part.
He said that he and Morfydd Clark talked about, they saw that this was happening in the script, and they're both like, "What?" And so they talked about, what does this mean? How are we going to do this? What kind of emotion is this supposed to be? And is it possible that in elf culture, for characters that have been acquainted for thousands of years and been through hell together?
Nope, still not buying it. Still not buying it. Brett, you love your mother-in-law. I don't think you'd ever kiss her like that.
Gosh, no. Can you imagine? Can you imagine when Celebrion, Elrond's daughter, comes home? Mom, here's my new boyfriend. Well, he's a good kisser, I can tell you that.
Yep, not buying it. So one more thing at the orc camp, when Adar picks up Elrond's brooch after the little key that she used to pick herself out. Do you think he suspects Gluk or Gluck, whatever his name is, the lead lieutenant orc?
I think that's what they're saying. Otherwise, I don't think you need to show that he saw the pin.
Well, he just knows that it was Elrond who gave it to her, right?
Yeah.
I think
I guess, yeah, that does clue us in that way.
he now knows how she escaped, but does he also suspect that maybe his lead lieutenant was aware and said nothing?
I'm going to say no, because I think that Adar is at a place now where he truly just doesn't really care about
Okay.
his orc followers. He doesn't care enough to supplant the first priority, which is killing Sauron. And anything else just doesn't merit his time and attention at this time.
Very well could be. Very well could be. We'll see how it goes when and if Gluk turns on him, if it comes up at that point. But
we had both said that we think Gluk will be the one to kill Adar. What if Adar kills Gluk at some point?
that would be epic.
It would be epically kind of devastating for it.
Adar's
If you
character.
if you want the audience to sympathize with this race of orcs, that would be the way to do it.
True. I'm not a big fan of that storyline, though.
I'd rather see Gluk kill Adar.
Yeah. All right. You want to move on to Brimby and Sauron and on the rings and all the mind games and
Yeah,
all
I'll
that?
mention the one thing that I noticed when Celebrimbor's got the 9 rings, kind of just the basic rings formed, and we see him put the last one together, and you get the shining bright light, and then he puts it on the little stand. He's got 9 ring stands in front of him. It looks like prison bars that he's behind. I thought it was a cool little visual cue of he's trapped and
That
he's
is good.
imprisoned. Very similar to the last episode of season 1 where we mentioned you can go back and see that there's a shadow of chain links coming out. It's a shadow from above, but it's coming out from behind Celebrimbor's cloak as he's talking about this Halbrand and this power of that's over flesh, and it's just this really cool visual cue that he's been imprisoned. And so
Yeah, I like
just
that.
feeding this idea that he's a prisoner. One thing I will say about Celebrimbor in his admission to Galadriel, when he says, "Oh, there was a part of me that knew it was him from the very beginning."
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
I think that we all knew that, right? And I
Yeah.
think that in the initial stages, nothing bad had happened yet. And the promise of getting the thing that he's been waiting who knows how many hundreds of years for was too tempting to investigate the character of Anatar.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you get out of Brimby?
Well, I wondered, so orcs have black blood, right? I was kind of surprised, but thought that it matched well to find out that Sauron also has black blood. Or at least the blood he gave Celebrimbor was black. And I thought that was good symbolism and how it ties into the orcs and both being corrupted by the influence of Morgoth and servants of darkness and all that. So I thought that was nice, actually. And then another critique is, so when he goes to destroy the rings, right? He throws them in the little side forge, like we talked about. It makes me wonder, like, did he really have confidence at all that was going to work? Because he pulled out these rings that were supposed to be, I would assume, in his mind, if that's what he was thinking, these rings should be on the verge of, like, melting down, right? Or being malleable in some way, right? And he throws this shovelful of ash embers and rings right onto his wooden workbench. And I'm like, okay, so that was weird. But the weirdest thing was his very first attempt to interact with the rings is to grab one with his bare hands. And I'm like, that is not something someone would do if they had any confidence at all that this would be a way to potentially, if not destroy, at least disfigure these rings, right?
Yeah. That kind of bugged me too. It was more of a plot device, right? To cue the audience into, hey, these are like the One Ring that are cool to the touch.
And that was a good touch. I'm just saying that it would have made a little bit more sense if we would have tried, doing a Gimli thing and smashing it with an axe on the altar first and finding out that, wow, nothing I'm throwing at this is working, and holy crap, it's not even hot.
I will say one thing that I did like watching it again is when he goes to throw him into the fire. He doesn't immediately throw him in the fire. We get the shot of him, and he reaches his hand forward, and then he kind of pulls back a little bit. And it's got to be this thought of, if I throw these in and destroy these rings, I'm a dead man. I'm chained here, and when he comes back, I'm a dead man. And he has that realization, but then he does it anyway. He's ready. He's ready to die for his mistake, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, when he cut his thumb off, he is quite literally throwing off the chains with which he is bound, right? Both physically and mentally, right?
Yeah.
At least that's what I think. Obviously, Sauron still is going to have his go at him in the next episode, I would assume, mentally speaking. But I think that Celebrimbor's making a very strong effort to throw those chains off. So
Yeah. Yep.
One thing, I was talking to one of our listeners this week and brought up the concept of, the scene where Sauron and is talking to Celebrimbor about how, it pains me to do this to you, and Celebrimbor's like, oh, like it pained you to do it to countless others, and then he's like, yeah, but I'm really the victim here. Let me tell you about what Morgoth did to me. Can you even imagine? And it's just like a typical, I'm not trying to say I'm a psychologist or anything, right? But just the stereotypical thing of an abuser, right? Where it's your fault you're being abused. And also the pattern of how many people, have been abused, become abusers, kind of a thing. And that's exactly what Sauron is doing right now. He was abused. He wants to return the favor. And like you have pointed out in previous episodes, I think you get some kind of a feeling of accomplishment or thrill out of it, And then, of course, it's your fault, You you did this.
Yeah. And Brimby at this point, like you said, he's thrown off the chains and he's not buying it anymore.
Right. He's liberating himself, which I think is cool. That takes a lot of strength of character.
Yep. And maybe some of that strength of character comes from a realization that, hey, the end is near. So
yeah,
and
he's accepted it. I think he's accepted it.
He's ready.
So
I'm not ready to see him leave us yet, but we know he will. Spoiler, I guess, for those who just don't know. We didn't spend a whole lot of time in Khazad-Dum during our instant reaction, but we need to get back there. It was your quote of the week, I think.
I'll share it real quick. It was his speech. I just really liked it. It was, and you talked about it a little bit last week, or in the instant reaction, where it was organic. It was, not scripted or seemingly scripted. It was, pretty patriotic and passionate. Anyway, he says, "We are stronger than he knows," talking about Sauron, "for there is something all dwarves prize far more than riches, more even than this mountain we hold dear. Fight with me so all the world can see that dwarven loyalty is a force stronger than sorcery, more powerful than any army, deeper than the bones of the earth. Will you fight with our friends? Will you fight for Khazad-Dum?" I thought that was awesome. I'd be like, even if I'm not a dwarf, I'm following that guy into whatever battle we're going into, you know?
Did you catch his rhyming too in the middle of it? Fight with me so all the world can see. Sorcery, any army, it. I mentioned it
I
in
did not,
season
but that's a
one.
good point.
In season one, he had some lines where I was like, man, this guy is quite eloquent. We're used to the
Yeah.
Gimli and the Ironfoot from The Hobbit that are kind of crass, and Durin, is a little rough around
Gimli
the
is a
edges, but
poet. I don't know what you're talking about.
well, a poet of sorts. At least in the movies. The Peter Jackson one, right? But Durin, he's got a way for words, I think. I loved that speech.
Yeah. And like I said, follow him anywhere, right? Like, true leader right there.
Just a
One thing
shame that they didn't actually made it out to battle.
Yes. Yes. Well, it would have saved a Region, and we can't have that, right? So,
Right.
one thing I thought was interesting is you see the entire kingdom is here listening to Durin effectively stage a coup. The entire army is mobilized and mustered outside the gate, and King Durin is totally oblivious to, at least seemingly oblivious to everything that's going down, and it's like, just to show the extent at which the ring has possessed him, right? And again, I think that, like I said before, I think that it's Sauron's active influence right now, especially on King Durin, I need that Balrog out now. I need your kingdom and your son off the board immediately. So, like, cue the aneurysm if need be, but I am boring a hole into your head to get that Balrog out of there,
Yeah, Prince Durin's the one character that's really stood up to Sauron from the get-go.
Yeah. And I think it just speaks to the hardiness of the dwarves, right? We talked about that a little bit in relation to the influence that the rings have on them compared to men. And I think that's right where it's at.
I was just say you have an interesting potential theory about Narvi.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you is, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit in previous episodes, but watching it again, I'm still undecided if Narvi is possessed or not. Possessed like King Durin is with Sauron, right? Because he's got these things going for him in that argument where Sauron says he got the mithril from Narvi. Narvi has been to Eregion a few times, actually probably many times, working on the gates of Moria, right? So he's been around Anatar quite a bit. He's close to the king, his one of his chief advisors, so he would have been close to the Seven Rings, right? And I just found it suspicious that this message from Narvi is what actually tipped the scales for Durin not to leave. And I'm like, interesting that Disa didn't come. No one else came with Narvi. And Narvi delivers these two critical pieces of information that just change the fate of what's about to happen with Eregion. So I'm like, what? Anyway, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be the kind of twist that I'm hoping we get in a season finale episode, right? There's got to be something that we just haven't even considered yet. There's got to be some somebody rips off the mask and reveals who they really are, kind of thing. And that would fit.
Yeah. Based on what the showrunners are doing now, I wouldn't be surprised if that person is Gil-galad, because they are really not doing him justice. So he'll probably turn out to be like one of Sauron's main lieutenants.
Jeez.
Anyway, I think that was kind of about it from the episode, though. Of like things that I wanted to kind of iron out. Did you have anything else?
No, I did want to address the 15-second preview of coming up next.
Yeah,
for episode 8.
Let's definitely dive in there.
The first shot we get, and again, this is at the end of episode 7. You can see what's coming up next. We start off, we hear a voice say, "Manwë promised you would come." And it's the stranger and the dark wizard. And the stranger says, "Oh, you know me." And the dark wizard says, "Yes." I had mentioned to you earlier in the week, what if that line, "Manwë promised you would come," was coming from a different person? What if there's another imprisoned Istar down there that would be the second blue wizard to the dark wizards? It'd be his companion. You're not buying that, though.
Well, I'm not buying that it wasn't his voice. Like I said before, that actor's voice is kind of recognizable. I think I'm pretty confident it was his voice that said that, even though I didn't see his lips moving with it. But as far as the idea that there is a second blue wizard imprisoned, or what I think might be more believable, dead, maybe.
Mm.
Maybe that is a possibility. Like maybe this dark wizard killed his fellow blue wizard, and now this is Gandalf the Grey coming in to
Save the day.
administer some Manwë justice.
There you go. Can I give you my bold prediction for what'll happen? Make it official with the stranger?
Yes. My quill is at the ready.
Okay. And I mentioned it 2 episodes ago, that I'm sure this is going to happen. So I think, but it's in 2 parts. The stranger's destiny is to save the Harfoots, who looks like will be
saying
captured.
Just Nori and Poppy, or
in the short term? Yes.
Okay. Or is it going to include the stores?
I think by extension it'll include the stores, because the dark wizard's going to come for them.
Okay.
But I think the stranger's going to decide to forsake the forest of dead trees and come and save the Harfoots. I don't know if that's going to happen necessarily in this season. That might be season 3. But I think he's going to make that choice, and I think he's going to somehow get back to the store homestead, and he's going to do the best he can and pull a staff from the branch of the random tree that we got a speech about, the Gund and her brambars buried underneath, and this has the story of all the stores, and I think he's going to pull his staff from that tree, and he's going to, this is the best I can do. Yeah. But that's actually going to be his destiny.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the bold prediction.
It has been noted.
Thank you. But yeah, right. I don't think the rune story gets fully wrapped up this season.
So what do you think will happen with that? Do you think he's going to get a name? Do you think we're going to confirm an identity of the stranger?
I cannot believe that we are still asking this question, and I still do not feel confident about it. I hope we get a name.
Yes.
I think
that's all that's going to happen.
You think he will get the name?
Well,
with the staff.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think they have to. They have to give us something.
That's what we thought 7 episodes ago. That's what we thought at the end of season 1.
We knew at the end of season 1 that he was going to Rune to find himself. I don't think we thought it was going to take the entirety of season 2 to find himself. But yeah, I sure hope that he gets some form of an identity and a staff at the end of this, because my goodness, it's about time. The rest of the story, though, dealing with the Dark Wizard and the masked riders and the cultists, that's not getting resolved tomorrow. Or
No.
it's not tomorrow, this week.
And I don't think Nori and Poppy get rescued from whatever danger they're in either. I think that's probably the cliffhanger we're left on in that region of the world.
Yeah, I will be a little peeved if all that happens is the stranger gets thrown. It has this little interaction with the Dark Wizard and like gets thrown into prison, and that's where it ends.
Mm.
I'll be a little peeved.
As long as Mary Mac joins along for the ride, and he and Poppy can have some more time together.
That's like my least favorite ending of any like book in a series, season of a series, is one of the main characters just getting hauled off to prison. I'm like, oh, here we go. We get
especially
a cliffhanger.
one you know is going to live.
Yeah, we get a cliffhanger of Limbo, and which effectively gives us nothing. And I don't even have a fear, like you're saying, that he's going to die. So,
other prediction thoughts. The last episode was called Doomed to Die. The only people that died were Damrod and Mirdonia. Who is
rest
doomed?
in peace.
Yeah, or whatever. Or not.
She was duly rewarded.
Duly rewarded, indeed.
Yes.
That's a good line. Who of our remaining cast of characters would we say is doomed to die in episode 8?
Well, we know Brimby.
Do you think he's going to die?
I
in
get what
episode
you're saying.
8?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think yes in episode 8. I think Brimby dies in episode 8.
I think you have to make his last episode of just acceptance and facing death face to face worth it. So yeah.
I think that you dilute the potency of his contribution to this season if you wait to kill him till the beginning of next season.
Yeah. Does Durin die? King Durin.
Yes. Absolutely.
It looks like Prince Durin's ready to chop off his arm.
Yes. Yeah,
according
King
to
Durin is going to die,
promo.
and I think that it could be the Balrog that kills him.
Ooh, rough. Adar. Is Adar going to die? Is his story over in Rings of Power?
That one, I don't know. Because with this little theory you introduced us to earlier today of that ring potentially restoring him, I guess I will say the odds are in the favor that he dies. I think there's less odds that crazy tangent actually materializes. But it would be cool.
He's not doomed to die. He could die. He's got some choices to make.
There's no way that Sauron takes control of the orc army with Adar still alive, in my opinion.
And that's... Do we get to that point next episode?
And
Sauron still a vagabond?
Well, that's another thing, because if it holds true to what we think, and next season is going to highly revolve around Numenor and the fall of Numenor, and if they stick true to the lore and Sauron goes to Numenor for that fall, then they do have an opening where they don't necessarily have to have him take control of the orc army immediately.
Yeah.
We will see on that one.
I think the jury's still out on Arondir dying. Do you think Gluk dies?
If Arondir lives, I think Gluk might die.
Okay.
Or sorry, not Arondir. If Adar lives, Gluk might die.
So neither shall live while the other survives, to quote Harry Potter.
That's what I'm thinking.
Nice. another question I had: Do we get one confirmed Nazgul in this upcoming finale, or is that all season 3?
I don't know if he's going to have the rings by the end of this.
Yeah, is Galadriel going to give him up? That's my other question. If
I don't
he
know if
does
she
get
even
him,
has them anymore. Maybe she hid them somewhere.
oh,
Because as much, like I said, why I think she would go back, right? But hopefully, also in her infinite wisdom, she decided to hide those rings somewhere before putting herself in the fray and facing Sauron.
I don't know why. I know why. It's because my 2-year-old's been watching Tangled recently. There's a scene where I've hid the crown someplace you'll never find it. He's like, it's in that pot, isn't it? That's what'll happen. Sarah will be like, it's over there in that tree log, isn't it? She's like, no.
Yeah. What do you think, though? I don't think we're going to get a Nazgul. I think that we may or may not hand over possession of the rings, though.
Yeah, I guess that's a better question. We've got so many rings that are currently out of place. Adar has an elven ring. Galadriel has the 9 rings of men. You know, what kind of horse trading are we going to be seeing in this next episode?
Right.
Part of me thinks, I'm not ready to make it a bold prediction, part of me thinks that as part of their final showdown, Sauron will somehow coerce Galadriel to hand over the 9 rings. And I don't know what sort of deal or temptation or persuasion could possibly make her do that and have it make sense to us as viewers. But I think that's where we're headed. I think
Maybe
somehow,
it'll be a swap for her ring.
Yeah.
Because if he kills Adar,
he's got that ring.
Possibly. And maybe she's like, what good are the 9 rings? Because whoever wears those are going to be cursed. I can do some good with Nenya. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe.
There's something coming, though, because, sorry, folks, back to the soundtrack. One of the songs we haven't heard yet is called The Last Temptation. And we'll see what that means.
Indeed. Okay.
So is there anything else, Silson, that you're hoping to see in the finale? Or
like
not
I said,
see?
I think I've mentioned my main number one, it better happen, is the stranger's identity. For crying out loud. Give us a name. I think that's my main one. Like I said, I also think that as far as Khazad-Dum goes, I think that Prince Durin is going to be able to retrap the Balrog or do something along the lines to where Khazad-Dum persists still for some time. He'll probably do that with the use of his father's ring, I would assume, much to his dismay. Numenor, I don't think that there. We saw a few scenes in the 15-second preview for Numenor, right, with Isildur kissing the fiancée girl and asking her to come to Numenor with him. And then the other scene where all the faithful are being put in prison, which was surprising to me, honestly. After Muriel's trial, I thought that the pendulum was going to swing back the other way a little bit, but it looks like it's just continuing towards the anti-faithful side of things. But I don't think that we're ultimately going to get that much screen time in Numenor this episode.
And I hope we don't. Not that I don't think it's interesting, but there's just so much more that's got to happen. I hope we don't stray too far from Rune and Eregion.
Yes.
one thing we didn't see in the 15-second promo was any mention of the battlefield, any mention of Celebrimbor, which makes me think there's got to be so much stuff going on there that to show any of it would be just too much of a spoiler.
Well, the battle is over, right?
Right. I mean, like the aftermath of
like what happens
Elrond and
to
Adar with the ring and
and
Elrond and Gil-galad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right now, it seems like the orcs have some pretty high-profile prisoners.
Yeah.
And no army to rescue them.
Yeah. I mentioned in our last episode I wanted to hear what prediction for last shot of the season. I'll tell you mine. I think we're going to see the last shot of the season, just throwing it out into the wind. I think we're going to see Sauron standing on the coast, and maybe it's a flash forward of, traveled along the coast, standing on the coast, looking out, seeing ships from Numenor come in, and we pan down to his hand held out, and he's got the bag of rings sitting in his hand. He's got the grin on his face. I think it would be a surprise to us that he has the rings. Like, that would be a twist somehow. Somehow they'd frame it so that when we see those rings, we'd be like, how did he get those? But that's what I think is going to be the last shot of the season, is him looking out towards ships coming from Numenor, and he's got the rings ready to start handing out VIP invitations to his party.
Well, let me throw this at you.
Let's hear
Does Isildur know that Halbrand is Sauron?
He does not.
Is Halbrand going to ride the boat with Isildur back to Numenor?
Oh! Ooh!
Is that going to be the final scene of them standing on the deck of the ship with Numenor in the background?
I love it.
That would be crazy, because I don't think he does, and I don't think there's anyone around him that does. And all the people who do know are imprisoned or dead.
Yeah. And then we would explore in season 3 how Sauron negotiates his way around Farazan and becomes buddies with him.
Right. And it would also kind of lend its way into how Isildur was too weak to throw in, how he already had a little bit of his heart because of previous interactions with this Halbrand character, maybe. I don't know.
And maybe he has enough willpower to resist one of the 9, but he could have something a little better.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
very good.
And I don't think that Sauron really sees Isildur at this point as what he like. There's no way that Sauron looks at Isildur and sees this guy could possibly cut off my hand and destroy me down the road.
No,
because he is the son of, first of all, one of many lords in Numenor, right? Now, one of the chief ones is his grandpa, Amandil, but Elendil is kind of a lower lord at this point, and Isildur is his wayward son. So I don't think that he sees any type of threat and what I mean by that, any benefit in giving Isildur a ring right now. So even if he, interacts with him and tries to strike up a relationship, I don't think that he's ever thinking at this point, like, you're a prime candidate for one of my 9 rings.
That would be cool to see. I think at the end of the day, what I want to see out of our finale episode in just a couple days, I want to be floored. I want there to be a twist that just leaves my jaw on the floor.
Mind blown, right? Yeah, same. Which is why I'm all in favor of the whole restoration tangent, because it would blow my mind, and I'm ready for that. I want something along those lines.
Blow our minds and give us a name.
Yep.
Well, as we look forward now to wrapping up this season, we do want to just let you all know we're planning on inviting some guests, some of our frequent callers, onto the show a couple months from now as we do our recaps of each episode. we'll do our instant reaction to the finale as scheduled, and then our second breakfast for that will be a season recap, and we'll hand out some awards. I think we're going to do a Brimby's awards night and hand out the Brimby awards to
Love it.
our favorite characters, best moments, worst characters, worst moments. So make sure you tune in for that. You can make sure to hear it by following, subscribing, check out our Instagram page, and please share this with your friends. Let them know that you're listening to The Last Alliance and hearing a couple of guys share their opinions.
And hey, we'll share your opinions too if you write in. We'd love to be able to interact that way,
whether they're right or wrong.
Yep.
It's been a lot of fun. Can't believe it. Just a couple more days, and we will hopefully know who the stranger is. Thank you for joining our fellowship on this episode of The Last Alliance, a Rings of Power podcast.
And if you enjoyed this episode even half as well as you should have liked, or liked half of it half as well as it deserved, please subscribe, comment, and share.
We'll see you next time.